Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome into today's show. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. Iran is likely to send a revised proposal to end the war with the U.S. within days, according to reports. Pakistani mediators will be involved in the process, the Times of Israel reported yesterday. And the move came after the U.S. said Iran's latest proposal fell short because it did not include provisions preventing Tehran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. We have a complete update for you in today's show. The FBI raided 22 locations, including more child care centers in Minnesota yesterday morning as part of a wide-ranging investigation of social services fraud. This comes after the Nick Shirley videos last year that really put a spotlight on Minneapolis. This is statewide in Minnesota. The raids weren't focused on immigration enforcement this time, but fraud within the business community tied to the Somali community. Legislators in South Carolina would need permission from an ethics committee to get any state funds outside of their legislative salaries under a clause senators added to the state spending plan. This comes after launching an investigation into a South Carolina House member's nonprofit salary. It's a busy day. Let's get started.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
President Donald Trump yesterday criticized German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about regarding Iran's nuclear capabilities. On True Social, the president posted, the Chancellor of Germany thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, the whole world would be held hostage, the president said. I'm doing something with Iran right now that other nations or presidents should have done long ago. No wonder Germany is doing so poorly, both economically and otherwise, the president said. His remarks came after the German chancellor said on April 27th that Iran's leadership is humiliating the United States. He said an entire nation is being humiliated by the Iranian leadership, especially by the so-called Revolutionary Guards. And so I hope that this ends as quickly as possible. Iraqi security forces opened fire on a drone flying over Baghdad's fortified green zone yesterday, according to security sources. Reuters reported that the sources claimed the drone was likely being used for surveillance. It escaped after coming under fire with no immediate reports of damage or casualties, according to various news reports. The green zone houses government buildings, foreign missions, including the U.S. Embassy. Now, also in the Middle East yesterday, the U.S. military boarded a commercial vessel that was suspected of attempting to violate the U.S. blockade. CENTCOM said that the MV Blue Star 3 is one of 39 vessels that the U.S. has redirected. This, of course, is part of President Donald Trump's blockade. In a CENTCOM statement, they wrote, earlier today in the Arabian Sea, U.S. Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit boarded MV Blue Star 3, a commercial ship suspected of attempting to transit to Iran in violation of the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. U.S. forces released the vessel after conducting a search and confirming the ship's voyage would not include an Iranian port call. It went on to say American forces continue to operate and enforce the blockade across the Middle East. So far, 39 vessels have been redirected to ensure compliance. It's just a hotbed of activity in that region right now. The U.S. Was joined by Arab Emirates and backed by concerns from key European powers, sharply condemned the United Nations decision this week to grant Iran a leadership post at a major nuclear treaty conference. I mean, it's just crazy what the UN or how the UN is encouraging or enabling Iran rather than just shutting them down. Iran's selection as one of dozens of vice presidents at the month-long review conference for the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty reignited scrutiny over what people are saying is a recurring pattern of Iran gaining procedural legitimacy inside international institutions despite longstanding concerns over its nuclear conduct. And again, the UN is just really kind of encouraging it, aren't they? This clash erupted as the 11th review conference. This is part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, opened at UN headquarters in New York, where Iran was selected as one of 34 vice presidents through the non-aligned movement bloc. What business does Iran have in these types of negotiations? The conference includes 191 treaty parties and convenes every 5 years to review implementation of the pact aimed at preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. That's exactly why the Middle East is in an uproar right now, because the whole world wants to see Iran not have nuclear capability. Now, if you look at this, the symbolism of this is just amazing. Christopher Yu, U.S. Assistant Secretary for Arms Control, told delegates, rather than choosing to use this review conference to defend the integrity of the NPT and call Iran to account, we instead elect Iran a vice president. It is beyond shameful and an embarrassment to the credibility of this conference. You know, I don't know why we don't just get out of the UN and show them the way out of Manhattan. This is times when the UN just really, you see firsthand how unnecessary our involvement with the UN is. Now, some people are going to say, well, we got to be there. We got to be in the conversation. But any time, it's like dealing with a child. If you don't shut a child down sometimes and just say, no, you can't do this, they're going to push you to the limits. They're going to keep trying to do things. Right? The UAE and Australia publicly backed the American objection. Now, get this. Britain, France, and Germany expressed some concern. Again, our friends in Britain, look, I'm sure that President Trump probably talked to King Charles about this. This probably has come up. If not yesterday, it will before the king is out of the country. Now, here's another interesting thing. The shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner over the weekend, according to Defense Department intelligence officers, has exposed a serious security vulnerability surrounding President Trump and other U.S. senior officials to foreign entities like Iran. And with tensions between Washington and Tehran rising and ceasefire talks stalled, Andrew Badger told Fox News Digital that the breach could further increase Iran's motivation to target Trump and other senior officials in his administration. He said, when you're looking at your adversary and you're seeing weakness, it also fuels motivation. Iran has the motive to strike at senior Trump officials, including President Donald Trump. Chaos, of course, broke out at the Washington Hilton when the suspected gunman, identified as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen of Torrance, California, stormed a security checkpoint and opened fire. Now, don't you know that Iranian terrorists have probably viewed that video over and over and over again? Wow. Now, one other quick thing. Hezbollah launched a number of explosive drones towards Israeli forces in southern Lebanon. The incident comes, of course, following a very fragile ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. The IDF added that it fired interceptors toward another suspicious aerial target. Now, Chief Fox News foreign correspondent Trey Yinks had an expansive interview with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and they touched on this topic.
Hezbollah has routinely launched attacks against Israeli civilians along the border. They have fired thousands of rockets into Israel. Are you open to a scenario where Israel maintains a buffer zone indefinitely?
No, I don't think the Israelis want it indefinitely. I think if you ask the Israelis, they would tell you the perfect outcome is a strong Lebanese government with a strong Lebanese armed forces who is able to dismantle Hezbollah, to prevent them from these attacks and ultimately to make sure that they don't exist anymore as a military unit. That's the ideal outcome that the Israelis want. I think that's what the Lebanese want. I think the problem we face right now in the short term is the Lebanese armed forces, while they may have willingness, do not at this moment have full capability to address all of the threats that are emanating from Hezbollah inside of Lebanon.
The Secretary and I also spoke about a variety of other topics, including Iran, China, and Cuba. He called Cuba a failed state and spoke about the national security threats it poses to the United States.
The other thing is it can get better. But in order for it to get better, they do need very substantial and serious economic reforms. Those serious economic reforms are impossible with these people in charge. It can't happen. And these people in charge aren't just economically incompetent. They have rolled out the welcome mat to adversaries of the United States to operate within Cuban territory against our national interest with impunity. We are not going to have a foreign military or intelligence or security apparatus operating with impunity 90 miles off the shores of the United States. That's not going to happen under President Trump.
Now, that's the kind of message the world, and particularly Iran, needs to hear, right? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. You don't have a weight problem. You have a body that's in survival mode, and no medication, crash diet, or app is going to fix that. Joey Hudson here, Ozempic, Wegovy. These GLP-1 drugs are exploding in popularity, and for some, they're a useful tool, but they don't address why your body started storing fat in the first place. At PhD Weight Loss, they treat the unwanted weight as a symptom, a signal that your metabolism, hormones, and stress response need some attention. When they correct those, the weight comes off naturally, and more importantly, it stays off. Because they're not just helping you lose weight, they're helping you increase health span and extend longevity. Right now, call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson. You'll get 2 weeks free in the program, and they'll pay for your food. That's a $1,500 value, completely free. Call 864-644-1900. Do it right now. Mention Joey Hudson. Again, that's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. No more guessing, no more short-term fixes, just a smarter way forward. Some people who look at the current situation between Iran, Israel, the United States, and they think, well, how does this affect me? Well, let's kind of dive into that for a minute. A $2,000 drone can force a $1 million response. And now the Pentagon is asking for roughly $55 billion to fix that problem. Now, that's not just another defense budget item. This is a major shift in how America prepares for war. For decades, we built the most advanced military platforms in the world: aircraft carriers, stealth fighters, precision missiles, missile defense systems. But with technology, the battlefield is changing. And for those of you who have served our country, and thank you for your service, I have never had the honor of wearing the uniform, but you probably have a glimpse into just how much the battlefield has changed with technology. Cheap drones are flying literally in swarms, like a swarm of bees. They're overwhelming expensive defenses. They're forcing our military planners to face a simple but brutal question. Can America afford to shoot down cheap drones with expensive missiles forever? The answer, apparently, is no. The Pentagon's fiscal year 2027 request includes nearly $54 to $55 billion for drone and autonomous warfare programs under the Defense Autonomous Warfare Group, known as DAWG, up from just $225 million the year before. So do the math there. $225 million just this past year to $55 billion. Now, I'm all for military spending. We have to be strong. But this is an example of how our spending just gets out of control. If we're going to increase this budget item this much, don't we need to look at something to cut somewhere else? How do you increase by, what is this, $54 billion and it not affect other budget items? I mean, this is not a budget increase. It's not a doctrine change. This is the Pentagon saying future wars may not be won only by the biggest, most expensive weapon systems. They may be won by who can produce, deploy, and coordinate the most effective low-cost systems at scale. Ukraine has proven it. Iran is presently testing it. And you got to believe that China's probably watching very closely, as well as Russia. And now America's trying to catch up before the next major conflict. And the problem is what defense officials call the math problem. Our enemies can send waves of cheap drones. We respond, again, with expensive interceptors. That works once. It may work twice. But what happens when the enemy sends dozens, then hundreds and thousands? That is the nightmare scenario that our military officials say that we're facing. And it's not theoretical anymore. In Ukraine, we're told that inexpensive drones have changed the entire nature of the battlefield. Small unmanned systems are being used for surveillance, targeting, direct attacks, and psychological warfare. In the Middle East, Iranian-backed drone and missile attacks, we've seen it over and over again, especially between Iran and Israel. And the uncomfortable truth is this: America's current defense model was built for high-end threats, not endless swarms of cheap ones. So now the Pentagon is moving towards what some describe as drone dominance, large numbers of unmanned systems, AI-enabled platforms, and autonomous weapons that can operate across air, land, sea, and maybe even undersea, we're told. According to reports, the DOG request would consolidate unmanned efforts across procurement, operations, maintenance, training, sustainment, enabling capabilities, meaning this is not one shiny new weapons program. It is a broad restructuring of how the military thinks about drones and autonomy. And again, I'm all for it. We got to be strong. But does this mean that we're going to cut some other areas that are outdated in order to pay for this? Because this comes inside an even larger defense request. President Trump's fiscal year 2027 defense proposal is roughly at $1.5 trillion. That's, according to the Economist, 40% increase, with major emphasis on missile defense, again, drone warfare, shipbuilding, aircraft, and military modernization. And this is kind of where the debate begins. Supporters will say this is overdue. They will argue America has spent too long relying on exquisite, expensive systems while our adversaries figured out how to create battlefield chaos with cheap technology. They'll say that we cannot keep sending million-dollar missiles after bargain basement drones. And I would tend to agree with that. Again, I'm not a military guy, but it makes sense to me. They have a point. Skeptics are going to ask some tough questions. Who is getting this money? How much of it goes to proven battlefield systems? How much goes to experimental technology that we don't know if it works or not? How much autonomy are we comfortable giving weapon systems? And how does Congress make sure this does not become another bloated defense spending spree with buzzwords like AI and next generation slapped on the label? All very valid questions. Those are fair questions, because $55 billion, in addition to, I'm assuming, what we've been spending, because, again, we should be cutting somewhere, but we both know how this works, don't we? They're not going to cut anything. $55 billion is real money. Taxpayers deserve accountability. Here's the bigger issue. America does not get to choose whether the battlefield changes. It's already changed. The only choice is whether we adapt before the next war and not have to adapt during it. And this is where it gets even more important, because this is not just about drones. This is about whether America's defense industrial base can move quickly enough in a world where our enemies are literally learning in real time. So as Congress debates this budget, the question should not be simply, are we spending too much? The question is, are we spending smart? Are we spending smart enough? Breaking news late yesterday afternoon, former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted again by a federal grand jury, this time in North Carolina. Is tied to a social media post that dates back nearly a year ago. At the center of it all, a now deleted Instagram photo showing seashells arranged in the numbers 8647. Remember that photo? Went viral. It was all over the place, all over social media last year, as Comey was, I think, was vacationing at a North Carolina beach, arranged the shells, or we suspect he arranged the shells. He posted the photo of it. One would assume that he arranged the shells like that. Supporters of President Trump say the message was more than just a beach photo. They argue that it carried a coded threat. Critics say it's a stretch. You tell me. Comey insists he didn't see it that way, saying he thought it was just a political expression and removed the post once concerns were raised. Now, the Justice Department, they say they're moving forward. Now, here's the catch, though. The exact charges were not publicly detailed yesterday in the indictment, so we don't quite know what it is. This marks the second legal case brought against Mr. Comey in just a few months after a previous indictment tied to congressional testimony was eventually dismissed. And if you step back for a moment here, the administration is also scrutinizing former intelligence officials, including ex-CIA Director John Brennan, as part of a much broader look at figures tied to the Russia investigation era. Bottom line, this case is shaping up to be more than just about a social media post. It's shaping up to be a continuation of a flashpoint in this ongoing political and legal battle between President Donald Trump and officials like James Comey, who once investigated him. And look, I'm not going to defend anything that James Comey did. I just hope there's something real there so that we're not continuing to waste taxpayer money in a political investigation. Is it time that we just leave James Comey alone, let him go on about his retirement? You tell me. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always remember to use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com. Take advantage of some of the great deals Mike Lindell has for you. Just click on the radio special tab when you go to MyPillow.com. You can call to 800-893-4059 and look at things like the mattress topper, the MyPillow mattress topper. You can save up to $100 when you use my name. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. You're the most comfortable sheets you will own. They start at $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Or the 6-pack towel set for $39.98. You know they're one of my favorites. The softest, most absorbent towels you will ever own. So get the best specials ever. Go to MyPillow.com. Use promo code Joey. Order now, and your entire order ships absolutely free when you use promo code Joey. Now, this from the Daily Caller. A pro-illegal immigrant group, let me repeat that, a pro-illegal immigrant group received more than $8.7 million of our money in the year that it helped spark destructive protest. This despite outcry and probes from Washington, and it appears it's not going to face any consequences. Here's the story. The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, known as CHRLA, reported the government grants in its latest tax filing covering July 2024 through June 2025, last year, the month that Los Angeles, California, was set on fire by anti-deportation rioters. Remember those days? The chaos kicked off in June 2025 after CHRLA created an anti-ICE network that led to a union leader's arrest and encouraged supporters to arrive at a federal building for a rally that turned violent. The Daily Caller News Foundation previously reported on all of this, gave us a full breakdown. CHRLA defended the mob as rioting against deportations. Spread across Central California for days, it caused damages somewhere, and this is according to the Daily Caller News Foundation, between $32 million and $1 billion. So think about that. They did somewhere, and that's a wide range, I get that, between $32 million and $1 billion in damages, but yet they were also receiving $8.7 million from taxpayers to run the organization, to fund their protest. These types of things just really make me angry, do they not, you? To know that these types of leftist organizations are able to pay their salaries on our hard-earned money, and they're so destructive. And guess what? They don't care. They just totally ignore us. House and Senate lawmakers responded by announcing investigations into Churla that have produced no findings or legislative reforms as the leftists use the tax-exempt nonprofit system to fund radical causes. And they know that there's no consequences because we've never held them accountable before. The House Judiciary Committee and Republican Senator Josh Hawley both sent Churla letters demanding records of its finances and internal communications. According to the Daily Caller Foundation, there have been no reports of Churla handing over the information, and lawmakers have announced no further action. They send them a letter making the demands, but according to this report, they haven't responded. Nobody has said, hey, look, time's up. You're either going to give us the information or we're going to stop the funding. Maybe even try to claw back some of the funding. According to the report, the House Judiciary Committee did not threaten a subpoena if Churla ignored its request. So guess what? They ignored the request. Now, Senator Hawley did threaten, quote, a potential referral for criminal investigation. So far, we don't know that that's happened. The IRS and First Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Essay did not respond to requests for comment about a probe they announced last year into anti-ICE riots, while the FBI's Los Angeles office declined to comment. Again, this is from the Daily Caller. Churla's $8,726,683 budget from taxpayers in fiscal year 2024 made up about 35% of its total revenue. Churla has received more than $80.6 million in government grants since former President Joe Biden took office and opened the U.S. border to historic illegal immigration. $80.6 million in our money to create chaos. The nonprofit became a fixture in the U.S. immigration system after the Obama administration's Board of Immigration Appeals tapped the group to provide immigration services in 2011. Obama gave them a license to steal. Churla filed thousands of deferred action for childhood arrival initial and renewal applications and gave thousands of migrant services such as adjustment of status, U-visa, deportation defense, and fighting for temporary protected status from deportation since 2012. So Biden funded their organization to fight our country, to further the illegal immigration that we're seeing now, to support these millions and millions of people that he opened the door to. And get this, Churla and other organizations like them sued the Trump administration for halting the Biden-era federal grants for citizen naturalization programs. But so far, district judges and appeal judges have upheld Trump's right to do so. That could go away any day, though. But we had to defend it. It cost us money, legal funds, in order to defend it. This is what's wrong with our system. Again, when you have the House Homeland Security Committee sending a letter to Churla demanding information on its immigration-related activities because they receive federal funding to do it, and they don't respond because they know they can not respond and get away with it. Senator Hawley's office, the House Judiciary Committee, and the House Homeland Security Committee, according to the Daily Caller News Foundation, did not respond to their request for comment as well. Wow. A fellow anti-ICE group, Hispanic Federation, complained also in a press release that members of our partners at Churla and another group were detained and injured while demonstrating they too are challenging the Trump administration. All these groups that we're giving money to fund, or at least Joe Biden gave money to fund, they use that same money to sue the federal government. Wow. It's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? If I was just telling you this and you didn't trust me, and I know that you do, you'd think, that guy's nuts. There's no way this is happening. Not in the United States of America. But guess what? It is. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Income for state legislators in South Carolina is back in the news. This from an article covered by the South Carolina Daily Gazette. Legislators would need permission from an ethics committee to get any state funds outside of their legislative salaries under a clause that senators added to the state spending plan. This, of course, is in response to an investigation into a South Carolina House member's nonprofit salary. Senators voted 32-9 to add the clause to the budget, with opposition coming from a mix of Democrats and Republicans. Most of the concerns Senator raised dealt with the logistics of needing to ask for an opinion about every potential interaction between their business and state government. The proposal, which would need the House's approval, follows some questions about Representative Gilda Cobb Hunter and a nonprofit that she runs that receives tax dollars through a state budget directive, and she's been getting this since 2002. The State Law Enforcement Division, at the request of Senate Finance Chairman Harvey Peeler, is investigating whether that funding has violated state ethics laws. Unnoticed for decades, the spending has recently been scrutinized due to the Attorney General's race. Here's the story. Senator Stephen Goldfinch, who's running for Attorney General, noticed a clause mentioned in the First Judicial Circuit, which is where the nonprofit primarily operates, and where one of his primary opponents, Solicitor David Pascoe, is the solicitor. Ms. Cobb Hunter previously, according to the Daily Gazette, said that she followed all reporting rules. Her supporters, including several candidates for office themselves, defended her during a news conference at the State House the day that senators adopted the budget clause. Of course they're going to defend her. Look, she may have followed all of the rules and the laws and the regulations, but the appearance of this smells. They called, her supporters called the investigation into Ms. Cobb Hunter political theater, saying that the longtime representative is a pawn in the Attorney General's race. Representative Cobb Hunter is the House's longest-serving member. She's running unopposed for re-election. They just don't challenge her in her district. Brandon Brown, a Democrat running for the U.S. Senate, said, "My friend Gilda Cobb Hunter has done no wrong. Politics are trying to threaten a hard-working state representative." Cobb Hunter's situation specifically, according to senators, changed the decades-old directive to divvy up the money among judicial circuits, ensuring the full amount doesn't go just to the nonprofit that she's led since 1985. which focuses on helping victims of sexual and domestic violence and neglect. Now, they may do good work. I'm not challenging the work that these nonprofits do. We got to take care and support victims. But again, the fact that she's a state rep and I'm assuming votes on this item in the budget, again, smells. Senator Wes Clymer, who proposed a new requirement for legislators wanting to ensure that no similar situations come up in the future, he said. Under his proposal, any sort of payments that a legislator received from taxpayer dollars, our money, your money, my money, whether through the state or a local government, would need to first get approval from either the House or Senate Ethics Committee. If a legislator didn't get an opinion, they would have to repay the money or risk being kicked out of office. Sounds fair to me. Mr. Clymer, who, by the way, is running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District, the seat that Representative Ralph Norman is vacating, said hopefully this will keep people from getting into trouble that they might have otherwise gotten themselves into. So far, it hadn't gotten Cobb Hunter into trouble. Maybe it will in the future. During Senate committee deliberations on a $15.3 billion spending plan, Senator Clymer initially suggested an all-out ban on legislators accepting payments that include taxpayer money, which I'm not so sure is a bad idea. Fellow senators kind of shot it down, though, pointing to all the payments they receive from state agencies for their jobs outside of the state house. Their examples included major sources of income like Medicaid reimbursements, as well as tiny potential contributions such as the occasional Chick-fil-A sandwich. I don't think we're talking about a Chick-fil-A sandwich here. We're talking about the fact that Ms. Cobb Hunter's, pretty much her salary from the nonprofit that she runs. And again, maybe it does good work. Maybe she should decide, I'm going to be a legislator or I'm going to run a nonprofit. I'm not sure you do both when the nonprofit is funded by taxpayer dollars. Legislators who work as lawyers, another situation here, and I've got a lot of friends who are lawyer legislators. Often they receive state funding for cases. Public defenders, like Senate Minority Leader Brad Hutto was cited. He's an Orangeburg Democrat. Senator Tamika Isaac Devine, a Columbia Democrat, both get payments from the state to represent people who can't afford to hire an attorney. Others represent the state in workers' compensation claims or help out the state attorney general's office. Senator Clymer's updated clause was meant to allow acceptable payments to continue while catching any questionable spending, he said. He told his colleagues in the state Senate. Legislators already must report their incomes on their annual disclosure reports. It's called the Statement of Economic Interest. Those who might have a conflict of interest can skip voting on certain parts of the budget. And there is suggestion that Ms. Cobb Hunter did skip that with a portion of her money or where the money came from. I don't know. I haven't looked that closely at it. The biggest difference under this proposal, though, would be whether legislators report what they get from the state before receiving it or after they receive it. Senator Russell Ott said, all you're really doing is changing the order of things. And I guess he has a valid point there, too. I think what we have to do here is once and for all, we've got to not worry about hurting people's feelings who serve in the legislature and get to the bottom of this and make sure that there's no way that any sitting legislator, whether he or she's in the state house and the state senate, can abuse the system. Because again, maybe Representative Cobb Hunter has followed all of the rules. Maybe she hasn't broken the law. But when you have a state legislator who runs a nonprofit who is primarily funded by state taxpayer dollars, it just doesn't sit well, does it? Now, Ms. Hunter has pointed to her own statement of economic interest as including the salary she received for running the CASA family systems The disclosure doesn't name the nonprofit. It reports a state-funded salary of $130,643. Those disclosures are not enough, according to Senator Clymer and his colleagues. I agree. The level of detail varies among legislators, and no one is scrutinizing every report to make sure they meet the state ethics requirement. That's the point that they're making here. Nobody's really looking at this. This has not been questioned in, a couple of decades. And because of a political campaign that involves the solicitor from her district who hails himself as the corruption buster, but yet this has been right under his nose for a long, long time. And, of course, we all know he's been a Democrat-elected solicitor. She is a Democrat-elected state rep from his district, so I doubt he was going to be looking at her very closely. Some of the same concerns have been raised during committee process, came up on the floor. Senators questioned how the requirement would affect business in certain industries. Again, it's hard to name every single particular or potential option. They just need to kind of close the loopholes. You agree? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com.